Supply and demand is a cornerstone of capitalism, and let's face it, the world we live in. But when it comes to subcompact cars like the Toyota Aygo, that saying takes on a slightly different meaning. Although there is lots of supply in the market, the customers demand that they aren't just basic boxes to shuttle you from A to B, and whose comfort levels extend to aircon and an FM radio. And those demands have meant that these kinds of cars can still offer quite a lot. In fact, I can't think of one entry-level car I've driven in the last 12 months that wasn't impressive in at least a few ways. The Aygo impresses straight away with looks that aren't just good for a Toyota, they're good full stop. Of course, styling is subjective and there will be people who don't like it, but at the very least the Aygo doesn't just look like something that's there to take care of basic transport needs. It really does stand out. The blacked-out X design at the front is the most obvious bit, but the way the whole design is packaged means that it never looks cheesy or over the top. Its compact body has crammed a lot of nice details that elevate it above the status of just a simple runabout. About the only place it falls short is with the design of the rear doors. Cleverly incorporated into the car's tiny sub-3.5 meter length they may be, but it also means that rear passengers might complain about the rear windows being the pop-out variety rather than proper roll-down ones. They might also complain about the space back there because it is a little bit tight. Up front though, there is a lot to enjoy. Great layout, good materials, and one of the best touchscreen systems on the market. In fact, the interior is another part of the Aygo that delivers a little bit more than you might expect. The overall impression is undoubtedly a good one, although it's not perfect. A lack of a directional center vent for the aircon isn't ideal, a compromise made because of that touchscreen setup, but the build is solid and the spec level includes Bluetooth and USB. Space is about what you'd expect in this kind of micromobile. Cargo space is helped by rear seats that can fold down, but with everything in place, boot space is quite literally good enough for a few shopping bags, but not much more. If you're a regular watcher of the show, or a car nerd in general, you might have realized that there are a few things that this car shares with another car we tested recently, the Citroën C1. And that's because the Toyota Aygo, the Citroën C1 and the Peugeot 107 all started life together in 2005 as a joint venture between the companies. And to this day, they still come out of the same factory. For me, there is a whole philosophical argument about skinning what is essentially the same car in different manufacturers' metal, but we can't get into that now. Happily, there is now more of a difference between the Toyota Aygo and the others, so it doesn't feel like you're just driving a rebadged Citroën or Peugeot. The Citroën C1 uses a 1200 motor, but we've got a 1-litre turbo, 51 kilowatts, 95 newton meters. And although the 0 to 100 time in this car is about double that of an FJ Cruiser, it really doesn't feel too bad. And on the upside, you've got Toyota's fuel consumption claims. They reckon this car will get by on 4.4 litres per 100 k's, which the FJ Cruiser couldn't manage even on the back of a flatbed truck. And the CO2 count is a measly 102 grams per kilometre. But as is usually the case, what the manufacturer says and what is actually achievable are two different things. We've driven this car in the city, we've driven it on the highway, basically a realistic simulation of its actual everyday use. And our fuel consumption figure is still 6.5 litres per 100. I'm sure with a lot of effort you could get close to Toyota's claims, but if you drive this car like a normal human being, it's going to be very difficult. Personally, I blame second gear. It's just too tall. The initial pull is okay, but shifting into second anywhere under 4,000 RPM gives you a serious loss of momentum, which means in order to compensate, you shift a lot higher than that. It also means that you spend a lot of time dropping into first to take slow corners, and then you repeat the problem. The Aygo will wobble in the corners if you're a bit over-enthusiastic, but it never feels unstable or unsafe. The Toyota Aygo might share its platform and a few other things with a Citroën C1, but at 140,000 Rand it is a lot cheaper. But at that price it does share a lot with the competition, all of which offer similar levels of spec, style and power. The Aygo is a very good package, but it's compromised by a drive that isn't the best in its class. The Aygo is another small car that puts a small engine to good use. The 1-litre turbo 3-cylinder offers decent performance, although it is hamstrung a bit by the 5-speed manual gearbox, which doesn't always get the best out of the motor. It's well put together with a good interior and decent spec. It also has striking looks that set it apart in a class of good-looking cars.